Thank you guys so much for coming here today. These folks are here on behalf of Demilitarized Brooklyn Navy Yard. It's a extremely sort of like exciting organization in that they have these very disruptive protests. I think there's folks here who may even have been part of those or witnessed them. And they have an incredibly interesting campaign going on. There's so much that we can learn from and potentially contribute to with respect to this. And so they're here to help us learn about why they're doing this and what reasons there could be for anyone to get involved. I'd like to let you guys introduce yourselves however you'd like. So just take turns and just say what you want to say about yourselves and your role.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. My name is SB, and I've been organizing with the Demilitarize Brooklyn Navy Yard campaign for almost a year now. And what kind of inspired me to get involved is the connections between what's happening abroad and what's happening here in our own communities, and seeing that militarization is happening in our own neighborhoods really inspired me to become more involved in the campaign.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here. Thank you for everything you do. It's always very inspiring. And I'm Gamar, and I also work with Demilitarized Brooklyn Navy Yard. I think after a year, it's more than 2 years now, but after a year of genocide, like ongoing genocide, that nothing could really change, and it was like a lot of protest happening in New York City, I think, and just looking at the movements happening around the world to see how we can contribute materially to change the situation and stop the occupation and genocide, we started to actually think about something like a campaign that actually bring the community together, and it's grassroots, and it's actually beyond just like marching and symbolic actions. So obviously it's a lot of work, and we need all of you and everyone in New York City to be a part of it.
All right, so we're going to run this as sort of like an interview and panel style format, but feel free to sort of like make any points that you need to make. This portion is ideally going to go until 1:30, and then we also have budgeted an extra 15 minutes for more questions from the audience. So that means we have 45 minutes to kind of go over this and kind of pace yourselves accordingly. And then after that, we'll have a couple of closing rituals at 1:45. Okay, so the first question I have for you guys. So for folks who are new to this issue, what would be a good way for them to understand why the Brooklyn Navy Yard matters in the context of Palestine?
So for anyone who's new to this, I would give them a little bit of background around the Brooklyn Navy Yard itself. This was an active sort of military site up until World War II, where ships were being built. And then after World War II, it was decommissioned. And the United States Navy gave it back to the city of New York in the 1960s. And then in the 1980s, the Brooklyn Navy Yard Development Corporation was created to help attract like businesses and manufacturing to the Brooklyn Navy Yard. And so this kind of ties into Palestine because it's a continued history of militarism that is happening within Brooklyn and within the United States of America. And we see the continued legacy of that with these companies that are involved in manufacturing weapons and tech for the IOF, for the NYPD, and for the United States military as well.
When people hear militarism, they think of like a faraway thing, like what's happening in places like Venezuela or Israel. How does militarism show up here in Brooklyn?
We have the campaign has started with a lot of like intensive research on what actually is going on at the Brooklyn Navy Yard and a lot of sites in New York City. We were very concerned with weapons manufacturers in general. So Brooklyn Navy Yard is an industrial park. Basically, the drone, like the Israeli company that is an IOF soldier, like ex-IOF soldier, founded, is basically lobbied in 2021. They lobbied Eric Adams' administration to deploy drones in New York City. This was during Black Lives Matter movement in New York. Before that, they were not deploying drones. There was like no permission for them to do that. So we see how drones that they started to build and use in Gaza and the West Bank started to be used here in Brooklyn. I personally actually experienced them in Flatbush when I was staying with a friend of mine. Overnight, we were on the rooftop and I saw a drone and I was like, what is going on here? This was actually 2 years ago. And then I was like, and then we looked at the map, we went inside the home, like we felt very scared. Like I personally felt I'm in a movie. The drone was like above our head, just like spinning, and then like went like to some like direction. And then we went downstairs, looked like opened up the map, and then we were looking to see what is around the area. We couldn't still see the precinct, like in the a block away. And then the next day, I could actually find the precinct, and I saw the cop cars outside. So, Flatbush, many of those precincts, especially in Black and brown communities, they're deploying drones every single night above people's heads. This is like in a violation of like their people's lives and privacy, and so this is a form of like how our struggles are interconnected. Same as like Cry Precision, not only they were like 2 Cooper Union graduates with fascist ideas. They started like making some helmets, like gears, and they sold it like to a American company. But then after 9/11, they started to make profit out of making tactical gears for American like the U.S. military. And the same people right now are actually supplying ICE, supplying Border Patrol, tactical unit that we are actually releasing information about. All the pictures you see from Minnesota, they are wearing Cry Precision gears. They're wearing their uniforms. They're wearing their like knee pads. They're wearing their tactical gear. So we see how connected they are. Like what's going on in Iraq and Afghanistan and Palestine is also happening right now, like back home, like bringing into our communities and like terrorizing our neighbors and our people.
Yeah. So, Palestine is just this story that we've talked about here many times. Although it's not as big in the news these days, partly because there's just so many other crazy things happening. But when I have talked with folks about what's going on, it's just absolutely devastating. There's still ongoing killings of people and starvation and deprivation of aid. Can you kind of help us understand how something so big and so just emotionally hard to grasp is something that you can actually do something about? Like what do you do when you know all of these horrible things that are happening?
I think for us, the most important thing that we can do is to educate our neighbors. So educate them about what's going on, but also like how these different issues are connected. Within our work, we talk about these companies. We talk about how it affects our local communities. As you mentioned with like the drones, we talk about how they are supplying gear and weapons and uniforms for different military units and how all of this is connected. And I think it can feel really overwhelming for people, but for us, we also emphasize like how you can start small. Like you can start small by showing up to a picket, and then it can grow from there. You can become part of a group. You can like bring this into your own life. So it starts small, and that's how we kind of connect with people, like with educating them and helping them understand like how these issues affect them personally as well, and the small actions that they can take that eventually can turn into something bigger.
Let's talk a little bit more about those actions. So, they're in the Navy Yard. They have a lease. They're doing their thing, and we don't just tell them to stop. Tell us what actions you're taking and how that makes an impact and how that helps people, feel differently about this.
Just like also to give some context, if anyone doesn't know about what's going on, actually, there are 2 companies. Like Brooklyn Navy Yard is kind of a tech hub. They're pretending that they're giving business to women-run, like Black women-run small businesses, but they actually have these multi-million-dollar companies that they have like more than like 100,000 square feet within the Navy Yard that they're actually manufacturing like weapons and tactical like gears and like all this. They're supplying all these little entities. One is Easy Aerial, that they're manufacturing drones. There are military aircraft, like literally registered as military aircraft. They work with Elbit Systems, which is the biggest Israeli weapons manufacturers. They also work with like a lot of different like they also work with like Homeland Security. They also work with the the U.S. military. They also work with NYPD. Cry Precision is a tactical gear. They make uniforms and tactical gear. They also, unfortunately, they also work with all of these little entities. So we specifically targeted these two companies because they also supply IOF. They have contracts with Israeli occupation forces. So to your question, so is that your question about like how like the action?
Yeah, like what is your sort of theory of how disruption plays out and what people how that helps people be engaged?
Yeah, I mean, so part of it, I think in the past 2 years, there has been change of change of opinion in people's like minds about what's going on in Palestine. But I think that's not enough. So we believe in direct action. So we believe that we have to. So okay, like I know that there were some questions about like violence and non-violence. So silence is violence. Like, I think that's like one thing to consider. When we are silent, when there is a violence going on, like I could imagine across the street, someone is like, there is something going on in front of our eyes and we don't do anything about it, that contributes into the violence in itself. So there is nothing such as non-violence in this case. When there is violence, we have to take action. So I would say the way that the campaign is like being like we operate is like through not only just just awareness, but also like coming to conclusion that we are in the belly of the beast, responsible to take action materially to change the situation and not just symbolically. Because sometimes you drop a banner or you go to a march, like we know that marches hasn't end wars. People march against Iraq, Afghanistan war. People are marching for Venezuela. But also Cry Precision is like the troops that invaded Venezuela and helped the abduction of the president. They are actually also supplied by Cry Precision. So the supplier of the troops are right here in Brooklyn. So we can actually go in hundreds and thousands and just, So these are different methods of thinking that how materially we can change. Like it goes back to theory of change. I think, unfortunately, controlled opposition and like a lot of big organizations leading the movements have been like through time, I think resulted into a lot of passivity and like symbolic actions. So we need to always be aware in our communities that actually we have the power to do better and to choose other tactics and strategies to change the world.
That's really helpful. I'm really glad you laid that out for us. I don't want to spend too much time on this question of violence and nonviolence because it seems to me very morally clear cut. But I think it is good to kind of help introduce people to some of these ideas, especially if you've never been involved in direct action. One of the things that I noticed at one of our protests was that there's graffiti on the buildings, and folks who work there will say, "Oh, why do they have to put red blood-looking paint all over our building?" What would you say to somebody who has that criticism of the movement?
So the campaign is decentralized, and we welcome. We don't peace police, or we don't tell people what to do, or we don't have borders for how people take action. People are welcome to take any actions as long as in any risk that they want to take. I would say property damage. First of all, is property damage, and we have there has been movements happened before that people use that tactics against the system to actually economically hurt them. So in order to make them stop, because, you know, if you go and protest in front of their building, they just continue doing what they're doing until we boycott them, until we stop, like disrupt them. If we disrupt once we disrupt the imperial machine, or like the machine that is contributing to this bloodshed, that's like the moment they are gonna probably look back and like probably respond, or just like, yeah. So basically, direct action has a history. One good example is a movie that I would suggest you to actually probably show, like maybe one, because we came to the last movie. It called The Animal People, and it's about SHAC, which was a group that started in the UK against animal cruelty of like this company that they actually were doing really horrible, like there was like a research lab with a lot of like funds from the government. The group started in the UK and spread like around the world, and here in the US, they started in multiple different cities, and they were very militant, and they started a lot of different tactics, like direct action, very like just very escalated. And I think they also used a lot of strategies like house actions, like they went after those people who are running the business or like profiting the most, like beyond just going to like the businesses or factories, like and also they did they also went after their insurance companies, pressuring them to make them drop. So they economically like kind of disrupting their operation. And I think if we look at those movements, they have been the most successful. Palestine Action is a very good example of that in the UK, that in the past 2 years, they started earlier in 2020, 2021, but I think what has made it very successful is because they have been targeting the subsidiaries, the suppliers, if we are not able to close down a weapons factory, we can definitely economically disrupt them. So these are the efforts that we all can contribute to by actually doing research, by going after like weaker points of, how to damage like economically like something. So actually we can long-term win or make them like stop or shut down.
I think that's a really, I love that description of successful direct action. It's funny, I was part of that campaign against insurance companies as part of SHAC.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah. So when we're talking about direct action and doing things that can appear violent, but obviously are really targeted to move the dial on this campaign, there's also an emotional component to this, and there's a lot of feelings that people have, like rage. But I also feel like communities need to have things that rejuvenate them and create a feeling of connection and care. And I'm wondering how do you keep your actions and your operations grounded in care and community?
For us, I think like care and rage are not necessarily mutually exclusive. The rage that we feel inspires us to care for our communities. And so I think like when we come together and we do collective actions, that is a form of care. And then within like our own movement and within our work, we do like teach-ins, we do sort of like community building as well. And that is really important because a lot of people are kind of, I think, new to this work. They're new to organizing, they're new to a lot of the theories. And so having like a place where they can come, where they can explore, where they can question things is really important as well.
I want to talk about sort of what it's like to be part of this campaign. What fears do you hear most often from people who support your goals, but maybe they hesitate to get actively involved in your campaign?
I think people are scared because there can be real consequences to speaking out, especially around this issue. People can lose their jobs, people can lose friends, they can lose family members. So for us, I think it's important to address that and let them know, like, when you start being part of this movement, when you start being part of organizing, you are able to create like new community and you're able to build something like even bigger than yourself, right? It gives you a sense of purpose. It helps you sort of like be connected. So I think for us, when we are encountering people who are scared, it's about welcoming them into a new community. And then also sometimes I think people feel a little hopeless. They feel a little nihilistic. They have seen movements that have grown in the past and that have been co-opted or infiltrated. And so we really have to like be, I think, not militant, but like we have to be careful in like sort of vetting people, but also in terms of like helping people understand how powerful direct action can be, and that it's not, they can go further than just like going to a protest or voting. We can do more than just that.
That's great. It's really helpful to hear that. So, okay, when you know, you're pushing this company, you're pushing on the Navy Yard. What do you feel like success would look like for this campaign, just in sort of like the near term, 1 year kind of time scale?
So we started the campaign in summer 2024. A lot has happened. And it's still happening, and we are not gonna stop. I think even if that we successfully get them evicted, or like they just leave and we get shut down, we are gonna continue the work. We are definitely, the campaign is gonna like be in different forms and shapes, but you know, maybe different targets, but the work is not gonna probably end. We also just started, there is a national campaign that is started by groups and comrades in Boston area, that they started this before October 7th, in April of 2023. They started a campaign against an Elbit office in Cambridge, and they successfully actually shut it down. They got them evicted. The difference is that office was, the landlord was a private, just like a landlord. But this one that we are fighting is a city-owned property. So Brooklyn Navy Yard and the companies are being leased by a manager, BNYDC, that is actually being, like they're working they're managing the park for the city of New York. So that's why we need to, like, this should be a citywide campaign, because we can pressure the city to evict them, or like demilitarize Brooklyn Navy Yard. So basically, we just started the campaign, succeeded to evict Elbit office in Cambridge, and they haven't been opened anywhere else yet. Another campaign just succeeded a few weeks ago in North Carolina. They shut down Logos. Logos is a subsidiary of Elbit Systems as well. A community showed up to a parking lot, a mall, and again the landlord, they targeted they had the secondary target, the landlord, and successfully the landlord just got really scared of like them flyering the cars and people around the area, so they evict them. So that's a new success about like these campaigns. I would say, and then there is a new campaign against Capital One Bank. Capital One started these cafes a few months ago in in New York City. The cafes are all around, like there is one in Soho, one in Union Square, one is in Columbus Circle, Herald Square, and one is in the Bronx. They try to bring people, if you have a Capital One card, a lot of students, they can get like 50%. But I mean, think about it, like drinking coffee in a bank is like, I know, I was like already like bloody. But yeah, so we just joined the campaign to eject Elbit from Capital One. They're lending $90 million loan to Elbit system that is gonna get renewed or ends in 2026. We want to prevent them from renewing that loan. And that really economically will hurt Elbit systems. So we invite everyone to join the campaign. We just had our first action yesterday outside of the cafe in Union Square, and it was very, very powerful, and it was very disruptive. And a lot of people, we almost hand out like 800 flyers to people. So So the campaign that we just started is also happening in DC. There is a very good group of like comrades in DC focused on that, in Seattle, in Philadelphia, SJP, and like other groups, and also in Boston, and now New York City. So hopefully, in the next year, hopefully we are not going to let Capital One to give a loan to Elbit Systems, and we hopefully shut down Cry Precision and Easy Aerial in Brooklyn Navy Yard. I think the success is to continue the struggle and continue the fight, and and have more of our community to be involved.
Awesome. That is very inspirational, especially hearing about all these victories that have happened around the country using similar tactics. We're a large organization, not that large, but we do have a goal of creating a more peaceful and just world. What would you say to the folks in this room about how individually and maybe collectively as well, how they can be involved in moving the dial on these campaigns that you're talking about?
So individually, I think that's a good question. We talked about this. Individually, I think we would like collective actions. We would prefer, because individually we can we can sign a petition. Individually, we can make a call. We can write an email. Individually, we can send a letter to our elected official. But collectively, we have more power. Collectively, together, like we would like your group to come with a banner, your group to also do an action. We would like every group to collectively actually take a stance and maybe even, I would say the power is in collective actions, and I think we should practice that more. So that's what we would like the most.
So let's make this even more concrete. How about, say, in the next month? What would be your sort of ideal action that we could take to help support and move this campaign forward?
So Easy Aerial, the drone company, also contributes and collaborates with Elbit Systems. Elbit System is working on this. I have the zines working on this very complicated system that is trying to actually basically do the operations through different multiplicity of things coming together, ground, how ground in.
So what they are trying to create is essentially automated warfare. So you have drones in the sky that can see what's going on. You have the drones are able to communicate to a command center. That command center can send out commands to the soldier, who also has cameras who can see what's going on. So it's minimal human interaction, right, with essentially automated warfare. The drones can also shoot weapons. They can do all of that stuff. And so it's basically very little human interaction. That's what they're trying to create. And that's kind of the future, right, that we're seeing in war.
Yeah, I would like to show the diagram, but I think we can do at the end. The name of the system is Torch X RAS, and it's a very complex system. But basically, as Comrade mentioned, basically all of these things coming together in order to, also kind of to some degree actually remove human intervention, and just the machine does the killing and the targeting and all of that. So, and surveillance, obviously. So it's really, it's a very important moment to connect these struggles, and the reason that we also picked the Elbit campaign against Capital One is because Easy Aerial and Elbit Systems are working together, and they both are contributing to this very specific AI system. So, and we will share with you the diagram that shows the Torch Extra system, Elbit and Easy Aerial, and the land Capital One and Brooklyn Navy Yard as their landlord and lender.
Yeah. Is that in the flyers that you guys had?
Yes, it's right
We
here.
can hand those out now if you want. Could someone help us by finding the pile and just hand those around? Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Right. Thank you so much.
I think it would be great that people look at it as we talk about it.
Yeah. Feel free to please take some of these. Maybe give some piles to each row. All right. So you're mentioning these company, and I'm trying to kind of zero in on like something in the next month that you think would be a good like target for these folks to get involved in.
So basically Easy Aerial and Elbit, Easy Aerial lease is coming up in 2026 as well. The same as the end of the loan is coming up for Capital One and Elbit system. We would like, as we connect this struggle, we would like everyone to come out to get Easy Aerial out, and also, just hopefully we can just make both of them just shut down. Yeah. So very good thing that can happen this month. We have a week of action against Elbit, and we are going to have definitely, we are also going to have actions against Easy Aerial. So just coming out to those actions would be really amazing, and collectively, coming to our actions, people also can, we also have different ways of, if someone wants to, they can do like on the ground or in person stuff. We also have a small groups that people can work, like do research or write or contribute in different ways as well.
That's really helpful to know. If somebody does want to contribute on this sort of a variety of things, like maybe they don't have the ability to come and march around in the cold in the morning, how do people get involved to contribute across a range of activities?
Yeah, so for our campaign, there are a variety of roles that people can take on. There's more on the ground roles, like helping us organize logistics and showing up to pickets and disruptions. And then there's also more like behind the scenes things, like helping us out with like graphic design, with writing, and with research. So there's a variety of things that people can do to be involved. It doesn't have to be always like on the ground. Not everyone is capable of that, and we understand.
What would be the right way for somebody to kind of what door do they knock on to get into that activity? I know that it's not easy for an organization that is as much repression as your organization to welcome new volunteers in a very flat way. How do you handle the sort of onboarding of new talent and new volunteers?
We have different groups, so not necessarily people, like it's kind of like not super decentralized, but it's like in concentric way. So for example, we have a group that they go to a lot of meetings. Like if there is BNYDC, the landlord meeting, they go to those, sign up to go. People who don't have problem with like showing their IDs or like their identities, they want to go to like elected officials from District 33, like to pressure them. People who sign up to go to CB2 meetings, the community board meetings in Brooklyn, which is community board 2 meeting. So there are like groups like that people can go to, like be a part of. So it's like safer when people do something together than like, there is nothing such as like we all just come to in one room, because it's kind of impossible anyway. So there is like a group of graphic designers who work together. Yes, we do have onboarding, and I think that's just based on like that you are trusted, you have worked with an organization, or you have done like like you believe in the objectives of the campaign, and I think, and also just showing up to the actions. I also think like not necessarily when you come to actions, like our presence is really important as community, like children and even like elderly, like when they come to actions, it's really important, because even if they don't make noise or drum or scream or shout or like chant, even being there as a support and just like present on the ground is really, really valuable. So I just wanted to also mention that.
That's really helpful to know that.
And just to add, people also do find us through our teach-ins and via social media as well. As Comrade mentioned, we also have some upcoming stuff going on. Next week, on January 15th, we are going to have a teach-in at Recess on Washington Ave, which is very close to Navy Yard. So you can register just saying who you are and which organization you work with. It's on CRIPAD. You can sign like anonymously. But basically, we just want to like make sure who is coming, that we told you. But we have a teaching that is a way to actually get more connected, to get more involved. And just like not just on the ground during actions.
Great. So we're getting to the end of this part before we start taking questions from the audience. I guess the last question I have is, I want to kind of end this section on something optimistic. And I would ask, what gives you hope, or what gives you the feeling like this campaign is going to be successful, that is worth your time? Why do you guys invest your time in this?
Well, I think for me, a lot of it, my hope comes from like seeing people sort of wake up. There's been a lot of stuff that has been going on since 2020. There was the George Floyd uprisings. There was the pandemic. There's been like ongoing militarization of our communities. I think that people are starting to really make the connections between these different struggles and starting to understand like the impact that it's going to have on our communities, and they're starting to mobilize. And so that is making me feel really optimistic. Yeah, and I think that we're in a moment right now where people have been protesting and they've been doing all of these actions, and they are ready to sort of take it further, to escalate, and to really like, I think think about more profound ways in which we can like restructure our societies.
Yeah, and I think, as Comrade mentioned, right now with the escalation that we see from ICE agents, it's a moment for community to come together and collectively, right? Collectively together, when we say united, the people united will never be defeated. That's the truth. Like we have power, and I think it's time for us to use that power collectively against a fascist system that is actually spreading everywhere, and just standing up and saying no to that, and just freeing ourselves and the people of the world.